call your home for the Pittsburgh Pirates in Fayette County, your local station, 590 AM, 101.1 FM, W266 DB, WMBS, Uniontown.
Hearing things incorrectly, it is Nightsounds with Brian and Doug. Certainly a special edition coming your way on this Friday night. We figured we'd come on the air right now for you folks that have been with us, of course, throughout the course of the day in the last couple of weeks. We've been mentioning that today will be the final day that the CBS radio network will be on the air. In fact, we're going to have the last three CBS casts coming your way. We'll have a bottom of the hour 10:31 1-minute update coming your way in about 10 minutes. The final 5-minute newscast coming up at 11 o'clock, and then the final 1-minute news update at 11:31. So I figured I'd bring in Doug Saltzman here tonight. Doug, you're the normal host here in studio. I know you and I were planning on getting together on Wednesday. I initially had a school board meeting scheduled, and it got canceled, but you already had some guests scheduled, so we figured, hey, why not? Let's do this on a Friday night.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked so much about what's happening with CBS News Radio, and at times you have to be careful you don't get too maudlin about it coming to an end. But it is bizarre after 99 years that something that you just take for granted, CBS News, and in the top of the hour and the bottom of the hour at 31 after. It's just strange that this is not going to exist. Literally an hour and 10 minutes from now, Christopher Cruz will do the final newscast. And I think those last couple newscasts they said are going to be more just thoughts from some of the reporters and the analysts and correspondents over the years as opposed to an actual newscast, which I think is appropriate at that point.
And personally, for me, Doug, this is kind of like family. When I took over managing the station back in 2003, the station a few years prior had switched from CBS to AP Network News, and one of the first main decisions I made here at the station was going back to CBS. So you figure 23 years of newscasts here, and they provided a lot of great programming, and certainly sad to see that coming to an end.
Yeah, as people who listen to the show know, I like to go to thrift shops. And a while back, a couple months ago, I bought an old newspaper at a thrift shop, of all things, the Herald Standard, about a horrendous snowstorm that took place in southwestern PA. Uniontown got 20 inches of snow. So I'm going through this old newspaper from the 50s, and then I see the radio lineup from WMBS long before you and I were ever around. And they talked about the radio programming that CBS had. Red Skeleton had a show, a national show, the comedian and TV star, that aired on WMBS. And you think about those radio shows that CBS broadcast over the years, and those have changed over the years, and there's not the radio shows that once existed once television took over. But the idea that at one point there was a listing, and it wasn't a paid listing, the station didn't pay for it, there was a radio listing in the newspaper of the shows that were on, many of which originated at CBS.
And over the last 2 days, we've aired a CBS program called Good Night, Good Luck. They took a look at the history of the 99 years of the CBS radio network. If you missed it on Thursday and Friday, we'll have it again for you on Saturday and Sunday this weekend. Also have it archived on both our Facebook and our YouTube pages. And they touched on that, Doug, early on in that program, that radio shows themselves were a lot bigger than news on the CBS platform, especially when the network took the air back in the 1920s.
Yeah, it's when you think about the impact that had, and the impact just radio had, when you see those legendary photos of Franklin Delano Roosevelt doing his fireside chats, or when he would do his reports to Congress, States of the Union, they literally had the CBS logo microphones, in the House of Representatives Hall. It would have been CBS, maybe MBS, not us, Metropolitan Broadcasting System, NBC.
But the MBS, I think it was Mutual Broadcasting System.
Right,
Usually
right.
the
I'm sorry,
Mutual Broadcasting Network back then.
Yeah, because we used to joke that, oh, WMBS was covering his fireside chats in the States of the Union.
Yeah, there's
Not
actually
quite.
there's a lot of those on the World War II speeches and war declarations and everything back then, along like D-Day, Pearl Harbor, all that stuff. You could always see that MBS mic there, and you think, well, we signed on in '37, so we were probably there for those events, right?
Oh yeah, when you think about that, sure. That our station would have aired those all through CBS, which is really amazing. And it's again, you don't want to go too far. This is not someone dying. It's not, but a lot of people you come connected to radio, and Christopher Cruz is going to do these final couple of newscasts, I understand, and he has the ultimate radio voice. And it'll be strange when we make the switch over to a new affiliation.
Yeah, it's going to be hard. I mean, Doug, and for me, it's been hard wrapping my head around the fact that CBS has had 700 affiliates across the country, and then citing here over the last 3 to 4 months how the company couldn't make money off the radio network. You consider the fact, just doing a little bit of math, that's 16,800 minutes of inventory to sell daily across 700 stations minimum, and that doesn't include feature programming as well.
Yeah, I don't understand. And I've talked to, as you know, over the years, I've done this now for 13 years, interviewed almost every CBS correspondent or analyst or reporter. They each have different titles. And, I've offered my best to them. And let me tell you, the frustration is there and the anger is there. Don't understand. I guess CBS is making money through the radio, but not making enough money. We normally wouldn't talk about something like that with an affiliate, but they're not going to be an affiliate an hour and a half from now.
Yeah, I figure it's certainly just kind of worth, going back and looking at how did we actually get to this point.
Yeah, it's Barry Weiss, who now is running the show at CBS. Coincidentally, is from Pittsburgh. And recently she's come under fire, and then the board of directors has come out in support of her. Well, that's pretty standard stuff. A board would support somebody until they don't. They're not going to say, well, we're not pleased with her. We're not going to talk about a personnel issue publicly, whether it's, an introductory staff or the top of the heap. But there certainly has been issues related to the CBS newscast, the national newscast with Tony Katopel, and the ratings. They've rebounded some, but CBS is struggling, that's for sure. And we'll see what happens to the leadership here. I just can't. I'm surprised no one wanted to buy, as you mentioned, nobody wanted to buy the network.
Yeah, I understand.
The radio network.
And I understand a lot of the former employees at CBS are going to be starting their own network as well, and we'll see how that pans out here over the next couple of months. And it's kind of unfortunate for them that maybe couldn't get the ball rolling maybe a little bit sooner and maybe have an opportunity to grab, some affiliates, because obviously a lot of affiliates like us were kind of in a position where they had to make a move going somewhere, and you can't wait till, of course, the final hour drops and the final ball drops to kind of make those calls.
Yeah, you're right. It's not as if 700 stations are going to wait and see if somebody took over or decided to start their own. We had to have something literally at midnight.
Correct.
Tonight, an hour and a half from now. We just couldn't wing it. We had to have somebody, and I'm sure our listeners have been wondering, are we still going to have national news?
Yes,
and
we are.
Stressed that. Yeah, I've stressed that a lot during the afternoon drive show. I said, that announcement will be made when it's made. But I said, folks, don't worry. We will have a national news affiliation. And I think a lot of people probably wonder how that works. People just take it for granted, and they should. Radio has always been there. It's free. I think a lot of people, wonder, like, my gosh, that's right, this is free. Radio is free. I'm not paying cable like you would back in the day. It's just a very strange situation.
And there aren't as many networks that actually produce news 24/7 as you might think. You go back, and NBC, there still is an NBC radio network. They don't deliver satellite-driven programming, but it's not actually being done by the old folks at NBC. It's just kind of a new group that's kind of taken over the NBC name.
Right, and we do feature some of those, don't we?
Correct, and we're going to still continue to do that. We'll pass along our hourly newscast. Will be coming from Fox, and we'll also have some programming as well from NBC. So we'll have a nice little mixture there of Fox and NBC programming that will be occurring here over the next couple of weeks. And Doug, we're coming up on about 25 seconds until the first of the final 3 CBS newscasts. This will be a 1-minute CBS News brief coming your way at 10:31, and then we'll have the final 5-minute newscast at 11 o'clock, followed by the final 1-minute news brief at 11:31. So here we are coming up at 10:31. Stay tuned. CBS News.
Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Loved one owns a gun, and for a while now, you've been concerned about their behavior. They're just not acting like themselves. They've been distant, they've been unpredictable, they've been lashing out.
Well, Doug, we thought we were going to have a cast there, and we didn't, so I'm not sure exactly what happened, but we'll try to pass that along later on.
Yeah, I don't know what. CBS has been rather interesting, to say the least, since Skydance took over. At times, it's been pretty frustrating. We'd expect a newscast at any given, at the top of the hour, nothing would come, or the weekend shows at times wouldn't air. Normally, we wouldn't be critical of our affiliate, but I think at this point we can, considering this is a great example. Their third from final newscast somehow doesn't come across the airwaves.
And I don't know if you're aware of it, Doug, but they had a major issue this morning with the final World News Roundup. They fed them out to every single affiliate across the country of 10 minutes of dead air, unfortunately, and they ended up sending it out later on. We aired it about 10:35 this morning, but they had a distribution issue, unfortunately, with the final World News Roundup, which we also have archived up on our site.
Yeah, it's you have to wonder who's left at this point. And obviously, when this word came down that they were shutting down, folks started looking for jobs. And I've been surprised how many reporters and correspondents and behind-the-scenes folks that we deal with were still around, frankly. But it has not been a smooth transition to Skydance, to say the least. They've really struggled at times with just the basics. Weekend shows that we would air, Jill Schlesinger on Money or I on Travel with Peter Greenberg. Those are long programs, and there were weekends that nothing came across the airwaves, correct?
Yeah, there have been a lot of feed issues there. Here's what we're going to do, Doug. I'm going to take a quick break. I think I'm going to be able to pull up that final 10:31 report. We have a CBS News feeds that basically archives a lot of the news, and I think I'm going to be able to access that. So stay tuned, as they say, and we'll take a quick little break, and we'll try to pull that up for you as well. And Doug and I will continue to talk a little CBS. We're also going to do an Indy 500 preview in the second hour as well after hopefully the 11 o'clock newscast from CBS. We'll do a little Indy 500 preview as well and talk about the greatest spectacle in racing that will be occurring coming up on Sunday. So you're listening to a special edition of Night Sounds here on WMBS, talking CBS News and the Indy 500 on a Friday night.
Is it time for your first home? Or time to trade up to a home that fits your lifestyle? It's time to visit Clayton Homes of Bell Vernon. You'll find special savings along with trade-in and trade-up deals. Imagine beautiful, new, energy-efficient homes packed with the features you've been dreaming about. Trade in and trade up at Clayton Homes of Bell Vernon, 4500 PA 51. Trade-in value toward purchase of a new home determined by resale value and evaluation by home center manager. Additional deposit may be required.
Do you need a fast, friendly notary service that is open in the evening? Sandy Howell Notary Services is here for you, offering new PA and West Virginia plates and ready to assist with your vehicle, boat, motorcycle, and ATV registrations and transfers, plate renewals, and more. Serving Fayette County and all surrounding areas, open weekdays from 10 to 8:30 and Saturdays from 9 to 5. Sandy Howell Notary Services, Dry Knob Road, Smithfield. Call 724-564-8955. Big enough to serve you, small enough to know you by name.
Looking to start a career in nursing? The Indiana County Technology Center is now recruiting for its part-time 16-month practical nursing program at the Connellsville Career and Technology Center. Named the 2025 Best in Fayette winner for Best Post-Secondary School in Fayette County, ICTC Connellsville offers a flexible program designed for real life, combining in-person classes, hybrid learning, and clinical experiences at sites close to home. But don't wait, spots are limited and filling fast. Classes meet just 2 evenings a week from 5 to 9 p.m., plus daytime clinicals every Friday and every other Saturday. Graduates can also earn college credits and gain advanced standing to continue up the nursing career ladder. With a 97% pass rate on licensure exams, now is the time to secure your place for the August start date. Federal financial aid and PA CareerLink funding are available for those who qualify. To learn more or apply today, visit indianacountytechnologycenter.edu/practical nursing.
Go to Ford of Uniontown and trade me in.
It's Jessica Karingala and Kevin Bain here at Ford of Uniontown. We believe in American values, hard work, honesty, and taking care of our neighbors. That's why right now, everyone gets employee pricing.
Wait, did you say employee pricing?
That's right. Everyone qualifies and you pay what we pay on America's favorite vehicles such as the F-150 and Maverick.
But the savings keep going. Don't forget, you can schedule your service anytime with convenient online maintenance appointments. Plus, enjoy free pickup and delivery for your vehicle service needs.
Go to Ford of Uniontown and trade me in.
Your truck knows, shouldn't you? That's Ford of Uniontown on the hill across from Applebee's. 724-425-5980 or FordofUniontown.com.
Price excludes taxes and transfer fees. Must finance with Ford credit. Not all buyers will qualify.
Really? What is all this junk?
It's not junk. This is important stuff. Those tools were Uncle Alvin's, and those boxes over there are my old sports memorabilia.
Uh-huh. Sure. You've never used any of those tools. Some of those other boxes have like an inch of dust on them. Listen, it's spring cleaning time, and I want it all gone so I can actually park the car in the garage. You know, use it for what it's made for.
But we don't have any space to...
Oh, I know we don't, Jake. But renting storage space is a lot cheaper than divorce.
Don't get divorced. Call Hopwood Storage Units. They have the space you need to free up the garage or that overflowing spare bedroom and, most importantly, keep you out of divorce court. Offering 3 different sizes at affordable rates, call Hopwood Storage Units today at 724-984-5238.
Brian Morozak and Doug Saltzman talking CBS and also talking some Indy 500 until about 11:30 or so tonight. We have our final couple of CBS newscasts that we're going to be airing. And, Doug, I was able to pull up the news brief that was supposed to come down at 10:31. So I'm going to play that right now for some of the folks that might want to hear the third to final CBS newscast. And before you rejoin me, Doug, we'll start that program right now. Well, Doug, I thought I had that. Now I'm getting a playback error here. So what are you going to do? Just one of those nights. This is my side. I played it. I actually played it during the break, and it came through fine. And now I'm getting a playback error. So I don't know what's going on. Just one of those nights, right?
Well, this is classic CBS though. For the last couple of months, at times, a 99-year-old network you think would be smoother in what it's doing, but the fact that it didn't air literally at 10:30 when we're talking about 10:31, we're talking about one of its final ever newscasts.
Yeah, and actually this is on my end as far as on the playback here. We downloaded the program. I played it in queue, and I don't know why I'm getting a playback error, but it played the first time, and now it won't play for me. So I don't know what's going on.
We can blame CBS.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. But we're obviously mentioning the final couple of CBS newscasts coming down, and we talk about history. Going back 23 years ago when I started here, it was Christopher Glenn anchoring the World News Roundup, and when they signed off this morning, it was Steve Kathan.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be Christopher Cruz doing these last couple, so we should have one. Let's hope in 20 minutes.
Yeah, I'm fairly confident we're going to have it here at 11 o'clock. So.
Yeah, and they've indicated, CBS that is, has indicated they're really not going to have a newscast. They're not going to be reporting news at 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock and 11:31, but more the thoughts of some of their reporters, their correspondents, etc. And I've really got to know. It's funny how you get to know these people. I've only met one or two in person over the years, and some of them just by flukes at airports and whatnot. But we come to know those names, and you're used to hearing someone like a Linda Kenyon or like I said, a Christopher Cruz, or some of the analysts like Bill Harwood from Orlando, and Colonel Jeff McCausland, who's actually from out in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. Several of them have said, "Give us a call. We'll still come on and talk to you." A lot of folks don't understand how that works. Those people get paid by CBS. Some are full-time employees. Others literally get paid by interview.
Well, Doug, I think I have this 1031. We're going to give it one final shot here and see if it goes through. So just stay tuned.
CBS News Brief. One person has died and dozens of people have been injured in explosions at a shipyard on Staten Island. New York Mayor Zoran Mamdani.
I want to ask New Yorkers to keep those who have been injured and the person we lost in our thoughts and to wish them a quick recovery.
In Orange County in Southern California, 40,000 people have been ordered to evacuate over concerns a storage tank filled with a dangerous chemical will fail. County Fire Chief T.J. McGovern.
We will do our best to get those residents that were evacuated back in their homes when the incident is mitigated and it's safe to do that.
AAA predicts more than 3.5 million Americans will fly this weekend. This woman at DFW says it's more convenient.
We tend to fly just to get there quicker. We've driven to Florida before. We used to go to Destin, and that's 8 hour, and that's even longer with children. So we elect to spend a little bit more money and fly.
CBS News Brief. I'm Christopher Cruz.
And I'm Brian Morozak with Doug Saltzman. And Doug, that will probably be the final newscast that will actually contain news from CBS.
And as you can imagine, CBS has been in touch with their affiliates saying how they're going to finish off their time on the air. But we'll wait and see what happens at 11 o'clock. Discussions. And frankly, I think that makes sense. Finish up by hearing thoughts of what some of these correspondents and reporters think about this change. My private discussions with them, I've talked to several of them off the air. Obviously, they're not too happy with how things are going. They assumed, more than one has told them, they assumed there were going to be layoffs, and there have been. Some of the legendary folks from CBS, when you think someone like a Steve Futterman, who literally traveled the globe. I interviewed him on the Afternoon Drive show from every continent, literally every continent except Antarctica, and they let him go, which was amazing. And you think about some of the others who reported and did analysis from New York City on international affairs. Yeah, it's a shame what has happened, but it's exciting to think, and that we'll now have the Fox Radio Network doing our news in addition to NBC. So I think it's a good blending of two different styles of newscasts and programs, and we do a lot of those now through Metro, correct?
Yeah, correct. And obviously, when we were looking for a new news partner, we wanted something that was going to be neutral out there and just try to do the best that we could with the limited options that we had available, because we said it's not, the heyday back in the 60s or 70s when you maybe had 20 different radio networks to choose from. There's really only a few out there, and not every market, not every network is available in every market, just due to some exclusivity where some other affiliates might have already been signed up. And that was actually the case when we were looking for some networks. Some we just could not choose from just because they had other affiliates that they had some market exclusivity, even down in Morgantown, which kind of covered our network and our area. So those were some of the things that we were dealing with as well.
Yeah, I mean, AP, for instance, has hourly newscasts, but only during the morning drive and the afternoon drive.
Yeah, correct. They're not fed 24/7, and we obviously automate all of our programming and want news in the overnight. So a number of those networks were just not available due to the fact that they were not feeding 5 minutes of news overnight, which kind of fit the format with the news we have at the top of the hour and the America's Best Music the rest of the time. So we just kind of had to do what we had to do as far as try to pick a new affiliate. And we're happy to be with the Fox folks, along with some of the cast that are here from NBC, and looking forward to that moving forward as unfortunately we wrap up our time here with CBS tonight. And I have to tell you, Doug, you did a great job with some of these interviews over the last couple of weeks with different CBS correspondents, and at times it kind of felt like listening to a eulogy at a funeral, just due to some of the conversations and as close as we've come with some of the CBS reporters and anchors over the years here at WMBS.
Yeah, I tried to do those and get not just what they were going to report on for the day, but how did this come about, and how did someone like a Bill Harwood, who's literally a genius when it comes to issues related to space travel and the NASA program over the years, how did that come about? And he was very blunt about it and said it was just by fluke. Yeah, he did other things, and at one point they said, "Hey, can you cover a shuttle launch?" And from there, he became sort of the expert. And he does TV as well. You'll see him on CBS TV, especially with recent Artemis 2. And again, I try to have those interviews and make it not too. This is not the death of a person, but at the same time, you don't want to overstate it, but it's still a change, and people hate change, and they're so used to hearing CBS News, it'll be odd not to hear that jingle and that music they play at the top and the bottom of the hour. CBS always aired their bottom of the hour newscast at 31 minutes after the hour, which we always joke, like, why didn't they do it at 30 after? And I guess Fox now will be doing theirs at 30 minutes and 30 seconds past the hour.
Correct. And we were actually thinking it was going to be right at 30 minutes past the hour. We were doing some tests earlier on today, and we weren't getting the bottom of the hour. We were checking it right at 30, wondering, hey, what's going on? And then we talked to a couple of our affiliate reps, and they said, no, it's 30 minutes and 30 seconds after the hour. So that'll take some getting used to as well. And I also thought, Doug, during one of the interviews I think you had during the last week or so, one of the CBS correspondents that you had on actually traced the Tree of Life synagogue shooting to the downfall of the radio network. Why don't you go back and explain that story to everybody?
Yeah, of course, the Tree of Life studio, oddly enough, Barry Weiss, who's now running CBS, was a member of the Tree of Life synagogue at one point, and just how they went about covering what was happening at Tree of Life. I got a call at one point asking if I would head out there and start reporting for CBS and get them some information. Well, I actually never went on the air for CBS that day, but I did get them some of the initial information because at one point it sounded so extreme. I think the network was questioning the accuracy of some of the reports they were getting and whether or not, in fact, that tragedy was awful as it was. Oddly enough, the guy who did that shooting literally lives half a mile from where I live. I drive past the apartment building he lived in almost every day of my life. So it's weird to think that who lives among us. But a story like that, and suddenly, sadly, southwestern Pennsylvania was the focus of news worldwide at that point. The biggest anti-Semitic attack in American history, sadly, was right here in southwestern PA.
Well, trace all that then, Doug, back to the downfall of the CBS radio network, because that's where kind of Barry Weiss, who's the CBS editor-in-chief, kind of rose to fame.
Right. No, absolutely. That's that's what brought her prominence, frankly, and that's.
She was working for the New York Times, wrote an editorial, and then kind of got picked up everywhere after that hit, and just kind of started building her background pretty much from there.
Right, exactly, and that's it's sad when something like that is what it brings attention to something. But and now, as we talked a few minutes earlier, her future with the network is being questioned, depending on which report you read or believe. The board of directors has said, "Oh, she has our full support." Well, boards of directors of companies always say that about their president when they're under fire until the moment they've been fired. And I'm not saying that's going to happen to Barry Weiss, but certainly the the network's struggling. The news operation's been criticized. The CBS Evening News is clearly in third place, the TV news. What comes from there, I'm not quite sure.
You're mentioning the Tree of Life shooting. I actually remember that, Doug. It was my 40th birthday, and my wife and I were actually on a train going out to New York City. We had tickets to see Billy Joel that night, and all that was breaking as we were making our way actually from Pittsburgh to New York City.
Yeah, and when I was out there in Square Hill, which is where the Tree of Life Synagogue is, and it's been closed down ever since, and they're now going to put a memorial there and a museum as a tribute to those people. And oddly enough, I found out that one of the people, and I won't mention that person's name, the family's asked me not to, I actually interviewed one of the people who were killed that day.
Oh, wow.
On a completely unrelated topic. And I had no idea. You know, I've done over 3,500 interviews with people on the afternoon drive show in the last 13 years. And I did not realize till several years after that tragedy that I actually interviewed one of the people who died, and I talked to their family and offered condolences, and they reminded me of that. I had forgotten about that, and they said, well, we'd prefer you not mention the name, but you can mention you did an interview, which is odd to think that I had forgotten. I'd interviewed one of those people on a completely unrelated topic, not about their Jewish faith, or obviously you couldn't interview about that before it happened. But yeah, I thought that was rather interesting that occurred.
We are still going to have some feature shows like Eye on Travel with Peter Greenberg that are going to continue on. He's still going to be independently producing that program, and you'll hear his 1-minute features and long-form programming as well on the weekend. So not all of the voices, Doug, are totally going away, and who knows where some of these CBS hosts themselves might end up finding other work on different networks as well.
Right, exactly. And several of them have said, Doug, I'll be happy to come on with you occasionally. And they're doing that off the books. You know, they're doing that for free. And I think Jeff Gilbert, who's a Pittsburgher, went to Baldwin High School and of course, works for WWJ Radio in Detroit, said, Doug, I'll come on your show anytime you want to talk about the automotive industry. And we talked about his history. He grew up here in southwestern PA, worked for a number of different radio stations in southwestern PA before he ended up in Detroit. And now doing affiliation. Larry Magid has his own show too, and I think occasionally we do air his show about protecting folks, what's on the internet, especially children. That's
he's always a great
interview
interview with you.
Yeah, he's bitter as well, as you can imagine. A lot of these folks are, and it came across in some of their interviews. You should have heard some of the things they were saying off the air.
I can only imagine. I mean, honestly, Doug, I was in disbelief when it happened. It was a Friday morning, and I was actually hard to believe. I was on the golf course. I took the morning off, and my phone just starts lighting up. I was on the 16th hole over at the South Union Municipal Course, and my phone just starts going crazy, and I was absolutely in shock. I finished up my round. By the time I basically came right into the station. And then the first thing I got was the memo from CBS saying that, you know, they were ceasing operations, giving us the 60-day standard notice that was in our contract.
Yeah, and it's strange to think 700 affiliates. And of course, how this works, this is behind, you know, inside baseball stuff. We don't pay to be a CBS affiliate, but they get to run ads on our station. So
correct. It's a barter deal, and we had to carry some. We had to. We actually enjoyed carrying some of the weekend programming as well, just as part of the trade-off and some of the CBS features that you hear throughout the course of the day. And like I said, it's the WMBS is 89 years old, and I think for about 80 of those 89 years, we have been a CBS affiliate.
Right. When you think about that, and you wonder why before you took over, why they decided to go to AP at one point.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why and that whole thing, but that was one of the first things that I did, just knowing a lot of the history. When talking to folks here, saying that how much they miss CBS, and my thought was, why are we not airing CBS then? I mean, everybody seemed to talk about the good old days with CBS, and the CBS is there, and then. It actually worked out in a good way for us because our contract with AP at the time was for a 5-minute long newscast. And we still had some time left on that deal, but AP decided they were only going to offer a 3-minute newscast and basically changed the terms of that contract, which made it null and void and allowed us to become a CBS News affiliate a little bit sooner than we would have been at that time, just due to the fact that AP decided to change the offering of what they had as well.
And once they changed that made the contract null and void, I would assume, correct?
Correct, because our contract was for a 5-minute newscast, and they can no longer offer that. So stations had two options: one, either to air the 3-minute newscast and remain an AP affiliate, or go and find somebody else they wanted to deal with. And I think it was pretty easy on our end, and then we just had to bring in the CBS equipment, get everything set up for automation, and go from there. And that was, I believe, early in 2004. I'd taken over in October of 03, and I think by the first quarter or so of 04, we were back with CBS News again.
So we're just a couple of years away from the celebration of the silver anniversary of Brian Morozak running the station in 2028. We'll have to have a big celebration for that.
No, that's quite all right, Doug. But I took it hard. I mean, I'll tell you, when they went off that weekend, and I mean, I don't know if I've even told you this, but I ended up in the hospital with a panic attack like 2 days later, just with all the stress and, worrying what we were going to do here, and, just had a couple other things going on with work, too, at the same time. That Sunday night, I said to my wife, I think I'm having a heart attack, and just with, thinking about what he had to do Monday, and I spent that whole Sunday night and a Monday morning in the ER. It ended up being nothing. It ended up being just, me being irrational or, just over dramatic, but it is what it is.
Well, I think the trouble with you, Brian, is at a typical radio station, 5 different people would have the jobs you do.
They probably would.
I don't think. I'm joking, saying the trouble with you, but that's an example of how much you do at the station, and that sounds like I'm sucking up to the boss.
No, but I mean, the problem, and I've tried to manage my stress a little bit, better over the years. It was bad a couple of years ago with things, and I've tried to level off, and I even said that to somebody yesterday over at the county commissioners meeting, that I'm trying to not let things get to me, but unfortunately things happen, and you just get stressed out. Such is life, right?
Yeah, and radio's radio. You can't have 10 seconds of dead air.
No, and it's not even that. It's just I'll just give you an example this week. So, we put in a request to stream. They're having a data center meeting coming up on June 3rd. It's like a week and a half ago. We got a lot of requests from the community to go and do it. And, waited like a week and a half or so. And then Thursday morning, we get told, no, we can't stream the events. And just kind of made no sense. So we've, had to go through a lot of hoops, and we still don't have permission yet, but it's just one of those things that, it's a public meeting, basically under the Sunshine Act. They have to let us do it anyways, but, why do people have to make things difficult,
Yeah,
and I know that's going to be an off-the-air conversation, but it's coming up on 11 o'clock at night, and, kind of shoot from the hip a little bit this time of the day, right?
Why not? I found that newspaper. We're coming up on that 11 o'clock newscast.
Correct.
But I did find this newspaper that I bought. It was the Evening Standard then, before the newspapers merged, the Herald and the Evening Standard. And the headline, 20-inch snow grips area highway travel paralyzed. This headline from Saturday, November 25th, 1950. And the reason I bring it up because then I go to page 11 of this newspaper, and it shows on your radio dial listings of what WMBS aired that day, including shows like Hopalong Cassidy and Sing It Again, Gene Autry. These are shows that were aired in the evening. Like we air music now, these
Correct.
were radio shows that we aired back then.
It's pretty neat because Billy Dice, who does a lot of camera work for us, he does a lot of sports history of high school sports and everything over the years, but he'll find all these other clips of the station mentioning kind of what you just did there, and he'll send them to me, and it's always interesting just to see some of the stuff that was put in the papers back then and compared to certainly how things are these days. So we're coming up now on 11 o'clock. If all goes right here, Doug, this will be the final 5-minute newscast from CBS News. Again, coming up here in about 10 seconds on your local station, 590 AM, 101.1 FM, W266DB, WMBS Uniontown. Here we go one last time, a 5-minute CBS cast. Department.
is CBS News on the Hour with our team of reporters around the country and the world.
In Los Angeles,
in Chicago,
in New York,
in Washington,
at the Kennedy Space Center,
at the Foreign Desk in London,
on the Champs-Elysees in Paris,
Wiesbaden, Frankfurt, Weimar, Jena, and beyond.
At the Vatican,
in Athens,
in Kyiv,
in Moscow,
in Jerusalem,
in Amman, Jordan,
in Baghdad,
in Logar Province, which is just south of Kabul,
in Islamabad, Pakistan,
in Beijing,
in Seoul,
in Tokyo.
And I'm Christopher Cruz from the Douglas Edwards Room at CBS News headquarters. CBS News Radio has been the home of legendary journalists like Edward R. Murrow, who flew with bombers over Berlin during World War II.
Berlin was a kind of orchestrated hell, a terrible symphony of light and flame.
CBS News Radio brought the news into your home from the lunar landing.
The moon age began less than 2 hours ago when American astronauts radioed from the moon, the Eagle has landed.
To the Challenger disaster.
Debris falling out of the sky, falling slowly, painfully, tragically slowly toward the Atlantic Ocean.
From Ground Zero.
The devastation that is before us now is unbelievable in terms of an entire World Trade Tower collapsing. There's nothing left of this thing.
To foreign battlefields.
The roads are lined with IEDs, and 2 Iraqi soldiers are killed when their Humvee is struck by a bomb. U.S. warplanes are eventually brought in to strike targets from the air.
And through the pandemic.
39 lives have been lost to coronavirus at the Canterbury Rehabilitation and Healthcare Center in suburban Richmond, Virginia. It's one of the worst concentrated outbreaks nationwide.
The famed CBS newsman Marvin Kalb said he always tried to be on the World News Roundup, a program started here that created the modern news format.
Every time that I could do a piece for the Roundup, I felt honored. It wasn't just a job, it was a calling.
Dan Rather began his career in radio.
Radio was a kind of magic carpet. They would take you there, they'd take you to the war. Radio had a certain immediacy about it.
Thoughts echoed by now former CBS News correspondent Scott McFarlane.
Try explaining a Supreme Court ruling and all its eccentricities in 20 seconds. CBS Radio could always do it. The biggest, the smallest, everything was told efficiently, conversationally. It's really what's the best of social media now.
And now, for all of us at CBS News Radio, for the last time, this is CBS News.
Every Sunday, moderator Margaret Brennan goes face-to-face with top leaders to make you better informed. Face the Nation, Sunday on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-507-9701. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS.
Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start.
Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems.
We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau.
You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-507-9701. That's 800-507-9701. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
As CBS News Radio comes to an end, we borrow a page from CBS News Radio correspondent and anchor Robert Trout and his tribute to our first home, Studio 9.
It's just a soundproofed room, 15 by 20, surrounded on 2 sides by glass-encased control rooms. On the third, it looks out into the clutter of the CBS newsroom. It's not the handsomest radio studio, not the most modern, not lovely at all. But for those who have worked here, it has a charm all its own. We shall miss it.
For all of us at CBS News Radio, the hundreds of affiliated radio stations and the millions of listeners.
This is CBS News.
This is Edward Murrow speaking from Vienna.
This is CBS News.
This is CBS News.
This is CBS News.
This is CBS News. This
For the final,
is CBS News.
For the final time, I have the privilege to say, I'm Christopher Cruz, CBS News.
Ready?
This is your local station, WMBS. This Weather Watch is being brought to you by Maloney's Restaurant, Main Street, Uniontown. Maloney's Restaurant, serving authentic Italian cuisine in Uniontown since 1950. Call 724-437-2061 for weekly specials and to place your order. Overnight low is 50. Rain early on Saturday, then cloudy and 60. Cloudy skies Saturday night, the low is 55. Mostly cloudy on Sunday with isolated showers, 76. Morning showers on Monday, Memorial Day, then cloudy skies and 74. Cloudy and 77 on Tuesday. This Weather Watch has been brought to you by Maloney's Restaurant. Let Maloney's cater your special occasion. Choose from their banquet menu and ask about their popular banquet room to make your next event special. Call 724-437-2061. This is your local station, 590 AM, 101.1 FM, WMBS.
Brian Morozak and Doug Saltzman continuing our conversation for another half hour or so inside our Davis & Davis Attorneys at Law studio. So there you go, Doug, the final 5-minute long CBS newscast. What do you think? Doug, I got you now there, Doug. Sorry about that. You're echoing there a little bit.
I know. I thought it was great. Christopher Cruz, who first off has the great radio voice. I mean, it's so perfect. It sounds like he's faking it. I've told him that he's got that great voice, and they did a nice job there without going over the top and being too maudlin. I mean, this is an era coming to an end.
Correct.
When you think about
99 years.
He's been on the air and what they've covered over the years, and he gave a great example of you have a correspondent or a reporter who has to explain a Supreme Court ruling in a 20-second report.
Yep, correct.
I mean, it's a lot easier.
A lot of condensing, especially when you look at the bottom of the hour cast. They're just 60 seconds, and then you basically have 4 minutes of news in 5 minutes because you have the 1-minute break there in the middle. So certainly a lot to condense in a small period of time, and they've been great over the years. And I know you can only say it, so many times, but we're certainly going to miss them.
Yeah, we sure are, and as I said earlier, it'd be interesting if our listeners could hear some of those off-the-record, off-air conversations I've had with some of these correspondents about their thoughts about CBS. And again, they were very blunt about it, thinking we thought there'd be layoffs, we thought there'd be significant layoffs. We didn't think that the network would shut down as a whole. They're making money. They've got 700 affiliates. They're running commercials on 700 stations around the country.
Yeah, it's absolutely nuts.
7 years ago,
it almost seems like, and I don't want to go overboard on this, but it just seems like they've shifted their priorities from placing a lot of those spots on the stations for the radio network versus maybe putting more stuff towards their podcast, their digital, their TV end, because we've noticed a lot of PSAs running and promos running over the last 3 months as well in areas where there used to be paid spots.
Right, and I was always allowed when I do the afternoon drive show to interview 2 correspondents or analysts or reporters, and there's different based on what they do. There is a difference between a CBS News radio reporter and a correspondent. And they were very strict in what I could refer to those folks as. And I was able to do 2 a day, twice a week. And then suddenly I got an email, as you did, saying you could do 1 a week. And I thought it was a typo.
Yeah, I
wrote back and said, you mean 1 a day or 1 a week? And so I called several of the correspondents I dealt with and analysts, and I said, listen, I apologize. We're only allowed to do 1 a week now. I don't know how often I'll even get to talk to you guys.
Yeah.
Not one of those people I talked to. And I talked to some of the high-level folks, those correspondents and analysts. CBS never told those guys that. They had no idea. And in fact, one of them said, no wonder I haven't heard from anybody lately. I was wondering what was going on, that no one's asking me to do interviews. They did not bother to tell their own correspondents we're limiting to 1 interview a week and I thought maybe, our station's not the biggest, but I called around to other stations around the country, and they were told the same thing.
Yeah.
So it didn't matter if you were KYW or in Philly, WBZ in Boston, WMPS in Uniontown, 1 interview with a correspondent a week that was it.
And it was interesting, too, because their satellite distribution, and again, this is stuff going into the weeds a little bit here, that probably a lot of our audience doesn't care about, but they had a satellite distribution and sales agreement with Skyview Networks, and they switched that to Infinity right at the first of the year. And that's when we started noticing more public service announcements in a lot of those areas instead of paid commercials in those areas that were used to have paid spots all the time. And it was a long process getting things moved over, very similar to what we're doing now, moving our 24/7 programming to Fox, when we had to switch platforms from Skyview to Infinity. So we did all of this back in January. And again, Doug, I'm getting an echo from you for whatever reason there. But we did all of that back in January, and then obviously only lasted here a couple of months.
Right. Yeah, it was not a smooth transition, to say the least. We have a feeling it's going to be a very smooth transition as we now go to Fox.
Yeah, we hope so. We actually ran some tests during the day today, and things went pretty smoothly. So I'm going to stick around till midnight and make sure that Foxcast fires off. But I think we'll be in pretty good shape. And I don't want to totally change subjects here, Doug, but you and I had talked, and I'm probably one of the bigger Indy 500 fans around the area, and you and I planned on doing a little segment on Wednesday, and while we have a little bit of time tonight, wanted to do a little bit of an Indy 500 preview. But before we get to that, how shocking was the tragic death of NASCAR driver Kyle Busch yesterday at the age of 41? He won a truck race at Dover on Saturday. A 911 call audio was released today. Apparently, Busch became unresponsive inside of a simulator on Wednesday. They called 911. He was able to wake up from that, but was violently ill, never recovered, and pronounced dead on Thursday. Just absolutely shocking at the age of 41.
Yeah, that was one of those stories when I first heard, and a friend of mine asked me about it, and I always feel like I'm the analyst or the reporter. And I said, well, first off, I've only heard it from one source. Let me find a second or third source. When something like that happens, I don't always want to even tell a friend or mention it online to somebody. When I mean online, to a text, until I know for sure that it actually happened, because this just seems so bizarre. I guess he was in a practice, and not just the simulator. At one point, he was driving one of his cars, and he said, "Please, I need medical assistance."
Yeah, he had a sinus infection, apparently bad sinus infection, got a shot, and you would know him probably more than I would, Doug. You come from a family of nurses. Have you talked to anybody in the family about have they ever seen anything like this before?
No, I was talking to my daughter, who's a nurse, and she said often people with a sinus infection have real problems when they get on an airplane, and just because of the pressure changes. And I one time was unable to even go down 20 feet on a scuba diving trip because I found out later I had a sinus infection. So that pressure that changes whether you're in an airplane or whether you're scuba diving or the G-forces. And I asked my daughter about this. She said, well, I'm no expert, but I would think the G-forces in a race car would be amazing, and that would have to have incredible impact.
Yep.
Yeah, I asked a buddy of mine who flew in the Air Force, and he said, well, it's totally different. You're in a pressurized capsule, when you're flying in a fighter jet. So they don't want you going up there with a sinus infection, but it's different than being in a race car. A race car is not hermetically sealed. You're putting up with those G-forces. Heck, the wind's coming in the car.
Yeah. I actually had an incident, too. I know I'm going to go into all my medical history here tonight, but I was stuffed up for about 6 or 8 weeks. And this was about a year or two ago, and I started taking Afrin on a regular basis. I didn't know you're only supposed to take it for 2 or 3 days. And then I started feeling like my heart was racing and getting real winded going up and down steps. I go to my PCP, and they say, well, you're only supposed to take Afrin for like 2 or 3 days. And I was probably on it for like 6 to 8 weeks, and it actually shrinks your blood vessels. So, I mean, I could have been in a bad situation like that as well from a sinus infection, just taking the wrong medication. And that was all over the counter stuff.
Right. Yeah. It's weird when you think about that.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
You take over the counter. I mean, I don't look at the side of the bottle when I take ibuprofen. And
no.
At one point, my daughter said, "Dad, you don't want to take too much of that stuff." after a while, certain medicines can affect your liver. I'm
Yeah,
like, well,
correct.
maybe I should start reading beside the bottle.
Correct. So certainly thoughts and prayers for the whole NASCAR community and Cal Busch's family with his tragic passing yesterday. We also want to talk a little Indy 500, of course, Doug. This is probably one of the sporting events I look forward to more than any other during the course of the calendar year. Will be coming up on Sunday afternoon. Alex Palou, the defending champion, on the pole. He was my pick to win it last year, and it's going to be hard to pick against him this year.
Yeah, you made that prediction on the afternoon drive show, and when he won, I'm like, what, is Brian psychic, for heaven's sake? You got 33 racers, and you managed to pick the winner, and anything can happen on a race.
Yeah,
I mean,
especially that race, 500 miles.
Right, and my gosh, you take a look at any race. Last week, how many cars are out in the second lap of a race? You never know what's going to happen. But yeah, I don't know how you choose against him this time around too. He's been strong for quite some time, and Indy's sort of fascinating. My brother and I, for many years, went up to the Indy 500, but I'm convinced you know more about the Indy races I actually attended than I do. But of course, you're much more of a student of these races than I am.
I just love the history. It's like the one thing, like sports-wise, I'll go back and watch a lot of the old races. They actually had a historical piece on Fox that I saw, I think, last night, just kind of going back, looking through a lot of the races and the history over the years. And I have it on my bucket list to get back out. They just did a big renovation to the museum out there. I'd love to go out and see that, and I could probably spend a whole day out there, just going through all the old history. But I don't know. I started watching when I was a little kid. Absolutely love it. I look forward to Memorial Day weekend every year. I'll usually go out, play a round of golf in the morning, come back, watch the race in the afternoon, and it's probably one of the days I look forward to more than any other every single year. And plenty of storylines again this year. I mentioned Palou on the pole, the defending champion. Joseph Newgarden, who starts 23rd, was the fastest during Carb Day today. For you folks that don't know what Carburation Day is, it's the final practice for the Indy 500. Of course, none of the cars still have carburetors on it, but they still kept the name. And other big stories this week, a Monday practice crash from Alexander Rossi, who won the Indy 500 back in 2016. He had surgery to repair injuries to his left hand and right ankle, did get doctor's clearance to race. The accident also involved Pato O'Ward, who appears to be going to a backup car now, and Romain Grosjean, the former Formula One driver. So that mixes things up a lot. I know Rossi was questionable earlier in the week. Good to see that he's going to have an opportunity to go. And I know he made a splash during his rookie year in the 500 10 years ago with a surprise win. And now driving for Ed Carpenter. Not exactly one of the favorites, especially after everything that happened this week, but it'll be nice to see him have a good showing.
Yeah, and that was a tough crash. Crashes aren't like they used to be, but when you hit the wall as hard as he did during that practice, and then you get hit by another car after you think, okay, I hit the wall, I survived this, I'm okay. Then a microsecond later, you get hit by another vehicle coming along. And we're doing 200 miles per hour.
It kind of brought back, Doug, memories for me of the Alex Zanardi crash in 2001 that occurred overseas, I think in the German 500, which happened right after 9/11, where he lost both of his legs. And unfortunately, tragically, Zanardi actually passed away within the last month.
Right, yeah. When you think, I've been able to meet, by going to these Indy races over the years, some of the drivers, and back in the day, they were either riding along in a golf cart or they had severe limps. Back in those days, your feet were inches from the front of those cars.
Correct.
And if you hit another car, you hit the wall, you were breaking your ankles, your feet, your legs. Some of them were permanently disabled as a result of that. I mean, they could walk some, but you didn't see them walking around a whole lot. Because of how dangerous those cars used to be. Your feet, literally, there were races where the nose cone of a car would be ripped off, and you'd see the driver's legs hanging out.
Yeah, Stan Fox, 1995, first lap of the Indy 500. Remember that, Doug? You could actually see his legs dangling there. His legs hit the wall after the front of his car was ripped off.
Yeah, it's amazing how much safer those are.
Yeah.
I mean, talking about your prediction, Alex Palou. I mean, he's a four-time IndyCar champ. Is he the GOAT? Is he the greatest of all time at this point?
Early on, I mean, and he actually, I mean, he's shown that he's beatable more this year than he has been over the last couple of years. But he's looked so good in Indy, though, this season that I think it's going to be tough. And you never know. I mean, your car breaks down, you get into an accident, and you just never know how things are going to pan out. But a number of dark horses to look at this year. And the one I want to start with is Scott McLaughlin. He starts ninth. Remember, you go back last year, Doug, he crashed on the pace lap. And it's only the third time that's happened with a car since 1986. Tom Sneva had that happen to him in 86. Also happened to the pole sitter Roberto Guerrero in 92. But it'll be a nice redemption for McLaughlin. Remember how upset he was last year hitting that inside wall on the front stretch. After that accident, he was driving the retro Rick Mears yellow submarine car and, doesn't even get an opportunity to start the race.
Yeah, that was the only time I ever saw. We were at an Indy race many years ago. You'll probably know the year and all the details more than I would. It was so cold, the tires couldn't get warm.
Yeah, that was the 92 race with Guerrero, who was on the pole, where it was like 40, 45 degrees, and he was driving for Kenny Bernstein, the Quaker State car, and that was on the backstretch, just trying to warm up a little bit. There's a couple of other cars that spun on the pace laps that year as well. And if you remember back, there was a ton of accidents in that race. That was when Al Jr. beat Scott Goodyear by just a couple of feet there at the finish line.
Yeah, I'm not surprised you knew exactly what I was talking about there. I am surprised how much detail you know. Like I've joked about over the years on the show. You know more about races I've been to.
Yeah, I don't know why. It's like can't remember some things that happened last week, but you asked me about old Indy races and I don't know why. I don't know why I like it. I don't know why I've been fascinated by it, but it's just one of those things that if there's nothing else on TV, I'll go on YouTube and find an old Indy 500, and I'm enjoying going back and watching. I always try to do it during the month of May as well, just because you kind of get into the whole spirit of the race with everything, and it's just been one of my hobbies over the years. And another guy that I'm rooting for, and I seem to root for him every year, is Connor Daly. He starts in the middle of row 3 in the 8th position. He's been fast all month, driving for Dreyer and Reinbold Racing. They're a one-off team. They don't do the whole schedule, just the Indy 500. I think he's going to be strong in the race, but the issue I can see with him, Doug, is going to be pit stops. You're going to have a crew that doesn't do the whole circuit, so I can see some pit mistakes possibly costing him from having a serious chance of contending. They call him Indiana's native son. Grew up in Indianapolis. His dad, Derek, actually grew up in Ireland, raced in the Formula One circuit before racing some at Indy, and was a longtime analyst for ESPN as well.
Talking about, you know more about this. You've forgotten more about Indy racing than I'll ever know. But my brother and I, back in the day, were such geeks for Indy. We subscribed to the Indianapolis Star newspaper for the month of May.
That is awesome.
And it would be mailed to our house. This is long before the internet was around. And we would get those newspapers usually 2 or 3 days late because they were mailed to us from Indianapolis. We would get the Indianapolis Star newspaper because obviously they would have enormous sections every day, the month leading up to the race. And this is the only race where they have that month lead-in.
Oh, I agree. I agree. And I used to go with my dad a lot. He had sales clients out in Indianapolis. That's another reason I got hooked, just going out there at a young age. And same thing, I would love to read through the Indy Star and see everything out there and all the news and, how big it was to everybody out there. And here in Pittsburgh, it's, you might get a little blurb in the paper. And I used to even subscribe to, I don't know if you remember this, On Track Magazine. Remember that at all?
Oh, sure.
I used to subscribe to On Track Magazine and get that all the time. But, yeah, I've been a racing geek for a long time, I guess.
Yeah.
And how about I have a real long shot for you, too, Doug. If you want to just throw a couple bucks, I'd say he's probably going to be 70 or 80 to 1. Graham Rahal, he starts 28th. It's the 40th anniversary of his dad, Bobby, winning at the Speedway back in 1986. Fox also had a nice documentary on Rahal and that win that they released earlier on this month. Of course, at the time, Bobby's owner, Jim Truman, was dying of colon cancer. He passed away about 10 days after the race. Truman, of course, was the magnate of Red Roof Inn and Sleep Cheap. Graham has never won the Indy 500. He's lacked speed all month, but he's never been a great qualifier. It'll be interesting to see if he can make his way through the pack.
Yeah, you're right. I've heard the commercials for the local car dealerships, and they were talking about the 40th anniversary of that win. And in the past, they also said, let's root for his son this year. And so, yeah, that would be interesting if he would have won. I was at that race in '86. I was a year out of college. And it was after that he started his dealership because his name got out there so much. I think.
Now, did you actually go out both weekends in that '86 race? Because remember, it got rained out on Sunday, rained out on Monday, and I think Tuesday was worse than Monday, and they pushed it to the following Saturday. I think it's the only time it's ever happened.
Yeah, no, we at one point there had only been 3 rain delays in Indy 500 history. I was at 2 of them.
Wow.
Because we were joking that people are going to not want us to show up, but yeah, we stayed through Tuesday, had to go to work, and then went back the next weekend.
Yeah.
Because when you go out to Indy and you stay at places, fancy hotels called rooms.
Yeah, I can only imagine what they're going for even back then.
Oh, yeah, they were, a place back then, that was $39 a night. You would literally negotiate with the front desk. Like, no, I'm not paying $250 for this place. I'll give you $100.
Yeah.
You come in between somewhere. But yeah, and it's not exactly, we weren't staying at the Hilton.
No, I can imagine.
Places called, or sleeping in a campground. We did that one year. And we got mixed up the one year. We couldn't understand. We thought we overslept at this campground. We were mad at ourselves. We were going to miss the beginning of the race. We got there, and the race, we thought, why is the race delayed? Now, again, this is before handheld cell phones. You couldn't look stuff up. Well, we had forgotten that Indianapolis and Speedway, Indiana, did not switch to daylight savings time. So we were actually on time for the race. We thought we were going to be an hour late. We were all puzzled, me and my friend, shocking. How are we here on time?
It was always central. It was always Central Time when you went there in May, but if you went in the winter months, you were still on Eastern Time out that way.
Right.
They never switched the clock.
And the rest of Indiana did switch.
Yes,
It'd be like
it was
Uniontown
really weird.
having one time and Connellsville having a different
Because I think you had the northwest markets of Indiana went by Chicago, so they were on a different time zone than the rest of the state. It's always pretty weird out there with everything.
So, yeah,
but that 86 race, though, also was the first race that was ever broadcast live on network TV. So there was a lot of history certainly going back there as well.
Yeah, there was a time when you could not watch the Indy 500 live.
No, they always put it on from until 86. For most of the country, it was aired the night of the race. And then still in Indianapolis, I think there might even, I don't even know now if they lift the blackout, but I know there have been a few years they had during COVID. But the race, for most of its history, is always blacked out inside the state of Indiana.
Yeah, it's obviously when people showing up, the place holds, 400,000?
Correct. Think about 300,000 seats.
And then tens of thousands of people go into the infield and into the famous area between, not quite what it once was, the snake pit, they call it, between turns 3 and 4, or 1 and 2 rather.
And Doug, we have about 2.5 minutes left before the final CBS News brief, which we hopefully get here at 11:31. Just a couple of other last Indy notes that I made here. Will Power now driving for Andretti Green. He starts inside of row 7, but it seems like Andretti's whole team just has not been sharp this month.
No, they haven't. And we'll wait and see on this. Let's hope we don't have a weather issue. That's always a nightmare.
Yeah, it doesn't look as bad as I thought it was, just looking at the forecast. They were calling for maybe 30 to 40% chance of rain, which isn't as bad as I thought with all the weather moving through the area this week. Another Indy rookie, Mick Schumacher, of course, his dad, Michael, a Formula One star, he starts on the outside of row 9. Mick drove in F1 as well. And his dad's been in an on-and-off coma after he was in a skiing accident with Mick back in 2013. And the family's never really released the whole medical history there. And it's been kind of odd. But, Mick certainly comes from good bloodlines. And it really doesn't have a lot of oval experience. But we're interested to see what he can do at the Speedway. And we do have somebody, hasn't been in the news as much, though, this year, Doug, as it was with Kyle Larson over the last couple of years. But Catherine Legg, she starts the inside of row 9. She's going to attempt the double, also racing in the Coca-Cola World 600 in Charlotte. Larson did it the last 2 years. He's not at Indy this year. I just can't see her having too much success, though, at either track. But nice to see her giving it a shot.
Yeah, and of course, there are 2 racers this year at Indy under 21 years of age, Collette and Siegel. So the average age is under 33 years old this year, young average age for the race.
Yeah, Nolan Siegel actually making a second Indy start. He's in the middle of row 7. And Jacob Abel and Kyle Collette, along with Schumacher, the 4 rookies that made the Indy 500 field. So, yeah, we're going to stand by. We're going to have the final, and we hope, and if we don't have it for you here live, if something happens on the network feed, we'll get you the replay here before we all sign off here in just a couple of minutes. But the final 1 minute long CBS News brief, and that'll be it for WMBS as a CBS affiliate. We'll have a Fox News hourly update coming up for you at midnight. We'll also have some NBC casts and some NBC feature programming mixed in throughout the course of the day. But, Doug, stay tuned. Here we go, 15 seconds away, the final 1 minute long CBS News brief here on WMBS Uniontown. Coming your way here, and count it down, Doug. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And prevention. A loved one owns a gun, and for a while now, you've been concerned about their behavior. They're just not acting like themselves. They've been distant.
Well, unfortunately, Doug, we didn't have it, just like the 1031. It didn't come in. But I'll take a break here, and then we'll try to pull that up on the old computer here and get that final cast for everybody, and then you and I will call it a day here tonight. Again, Brian and Doug talking CBS and the Indy 500 here on WMBS Uniontown on a Friday night. Stay tuned. We'll wrap things up right after this.
Really prevents.
Really? What is all this junk?
It's not junk. This is important stuff. Those tools were Uncle Alvin's, and those boxes over there are my old sports memorabilia.
Uh-huh. Sure. You've never used any of those tools. Some of those other boxes have like an inch of dust on them. Listen, it's spring cleaning time, and I want it all gone so I can actually park the car in the garage. You know, use it for what it's made for.
But we don't have any space to...
Oh, I know we don't, Jake. But renting storage space is a lot cheaper than divorce.
Don't get divorced. Call Hopwood Storage Units. They have the space you need to free up the garage or that overflowing spare bedroom, and, most importantly, keep you out of divorce court. Offering 3 different sizes at affordable rates, call Hopwood Storage Units today at 724-984-5238.
Derby's Riverside Ford is announcing Ford employee pricing for all. American value for American values. That's right, you pay what Ford employees pay, plus all available incentives and low financing. This is your time to purchase or lease a new Ford vehicle.
Now get a new 2025 Ford F-150 XLT Crew Cab 4x4. MSRP is $63,000. Your employee price is just $55,000. Plus 2.9 financing through Ford Motor Credit. How about a new 2025 Ford Bronco Sport? Employee price is just $34,000 plus 2.9 Ford Credit financing.
And my favorite, the all-new 2026 Ford Explorer all-wheel drive. MSRP is $45,000, but your employee price is just $41,000. Ford employee pricing for everyone. Now at Thurby's Riverside Ford, your presidential One Ford Elite dealer. Route 40, 1 mile past the casino at Nemacolin. See Sammy, Jimmy, Ashley, or Joey. Offer ends May 31st.
WMBS.
CBS News Special Report. After 99 years, CBS News Radio is going off the air tonight. For this final newscast, the news anchors you've been listening to for years wanted to say goodbye. The longtime anchor of the CBS World News Roundup, Steve Kathan.
Well, we are saying farewell this morning. America's longest-running newscast signs off for the last time.
Washington correspondent Allison Keyes.
I want to shout out my colleagues from Steve Kathan to Deborah Rodriguez to Cammie McCormick, Stacy Lynn, Linda Kenyon, Jim Krasula, and so many others who have given their hearts to this company and to the news. Thanks to our copy editors, desk associates, tape ops, and also our amazing engineers and IT folk.
Morning anchor Deborah Rodriguez agrees.
My gratitude to each and every one of you. And for one last time, this is CBS News Radio.
And Edward R. Murrow.
Good night and good luck.
CBS News Special Report. I'm Christopher Cruz.
So, Doug, that is officially it.
No, yes, it's a radio network. It's not a person. But this is bothering me, Brian.
It's
Really...
been bothering me for 2 months, Doug. I guess reality is going to set in now because it's not going to be CBS News at midnight for us.
Yeah, it'll be strange not hearing those voices and that approach to the news and everybody they just referred to during that thing has been interviewed on WMBS Live.
Yes.
We've interviewed all those people. And that's one thing I really tried to focus on in the afternoon drive show is that national approach. And every one of those names you've heard in a live interview on WMBS. And that's a sad thing. It really
is.
It's weird as that sounds. And I'm not an emotional guy, but that is weird to think that that's the last time ever. And that was a live broadcast, and that was Christopher Cruz and that great voice. In fact, I was wondering if see if we can get a hold of him between now and midnight while he's still an employee of CBS.
Yes.
If he wants to join us on air, I could check with him, see if he wants to join us.
I'm
That's
sure
your
he's
call.
busy, Doug. I'm sure he has a bunch of other stuff going on, and we have to wrap things up too. But again, it's been a fun ride with the network, the station, and affiliate of CBS for over 80 years, at least going back the last 22 to 23 years consecutively. And I know for me personally, again, it does hurt, even though it's a radio network, and probably a lot of people out there think we're a little loony for saying that, but they've certainly been like family to us.
But people make a connection. You know?
They do.
And because they feel like they know somebody. You know, Rick Seaback was in station recently, and we went over to Maloney's for dinner, and people heard me. We were at the bar. A guy came up and said, "Hey, I recognize your voice." I thought he meant Rick Seaback. He said, "Doug, I listened to your show." I'm like, "Well, thank you." This guy just recognized my voice. So people make that connection.
They do.
To people. I was with a woman I was dating one time at an antique shop in Uniontown, and somebody said, "I recognize your voice," and she rolled her eyes like, "Oh, please."
Well, Doug, I guess we'll see you on Tuesday then.
Yeah.
All right, sounds good.
The afternoon drive show. Short shows this week for baseball, but yeah, I'll be sticking around here in the next 23 minutes to listen to the first Fox newscast.
Yes. I'm going to make sure it goes well. So, again, thanks for joining us, and we'll have some music coming up until the top of the hour. Fox News now at midnight in about 22 minutes, so stay tuned for that. So for Doug Saltzman, this is Brian Morozak. Thank you for joining us for the special edition of Night Sounds on a Friday night here on WMBS.
Won't you play another somebody done somebody wrong song?